It wasn't without its challenges. I know that being in elementary school as a black kid in the early 80s, I was one of only a few. So I know that I was picked on quite a bit as I was growing up, called all types of names. But I know that my parents had instilled in me a lot of confidence to achieve my goals and to learn how to avoid overreacting to negative, inputs like that.
I think that's a pretty key thing to learn at an early age. See, it's a little bit different for me because while I was born here in Toronto, I actually grew up in the Caribbean where everyone is black, so I didn't have that kind of problem growing up. But it's always interesting to hear the difference in people's perspective and different ways people grow up and what they had to deal with, right?
I have utmost confidence in my abilities to achieve the goals that I set for myself. I went to university, I enrolled in the business school. Well, first I was in the Faculty of Science for 1 year, then I got my business degree. And after getting the business degree, I had an opportunity to go play professional basketball over in Europe, in France. But I made the decision to stick with law school. And I was also a part of the shortlist for the Canada national team as well that year. So it was,
wow.
There were some opportunities that I frankly left on the table to pursue what I considered to be a much more stable long-term. I grew up in a Christian household, good positive values. My parents certainly did. Just growing up in the city of Edmonton, in the 80s, much like many of the other Edmontonians, I like the Edmonton Oilers. I'm a fairly regular guy, notwithstanding that I've had some unique experiences that I've had to deal with. I would tell a 15-year-old Stephen Parker to stay the course. I would tell him that you can do it. You will do it if you continue to persevere. Whatever it is, whether it's athletics, academics, it would just be about instilling confidence in a younger me.
Have you ever been stereotyped? Had your abilities doubted because of the color of your skin? Judged based on how you look before you even speak? If you have, this series is for you. Welcome to More Than an Athlete, More Than Entertainment.
My name is Stephen Parker. I've been a lawyer for just shy of 20 years. I was born and raised in Edmonton, first family member to be born in Canada. My parents are from Jamaica, or my dad's from Jamaica. My mom's from Grenada. My older brother was born in Barbados. So
diverse household. So I can imagine there's lots of different. The patois between everybody is a little bit different. I have a little bit of different slang in there: Jamaican, Grenadian, and Bajan, right? So, So, just diving right in. Tell me a little bit about your childhood. Tell me a little bit what it was like growing up here in Edmonton, and kind of what it was like.
It wasn't without its challenges. I know that being in elementary school as a black kid in the early 80s, I was one of only a few, might have been my brothers as the other black students at the school. So I know that I was picked on quite a bit as I was growing up, called all types of names. But I know that my parents had instilled in me a lot of confidence to achieve my goals and to learn how to avoid overreacting to negative, inputs like that.
I think that's a pretty key thing to learn at an early age. See, it's a little bit different for me because while I was born here in Toronto, I actually grew up in the Caribbean where everyone is black, or the majority is black, right? So I didn't have that kind of problem growing up. But it's always interesting to hear the difference in people's perspective and different ways people grow up and what they had to deal with, right? So with that being said, were your parents able to instill that in you because you had a lot of siblings, or was it just something that they kind of told you before you went to school, hey, this might happen, you're a little bit of a minority here in school, this might happen, and this is how you should maybe deal with it?
Well, one thing that my parents gave me is confidence, right? Notwithstanding all the negative, comments that were being made and physical attacks that were being made on me, they always let me know that I'd be able to achieve my goals, to turn the other cheek, right? To take the high road, which frankly was difficult for me because I did have to defend myself physically on many, many occasions. And then I wound up in the principal's office, seen as the aggressor, as the instigator of those fights. So, sometimes you have no choice but to defend yourself physically. Other times you can take a more cerebral approach. Right?
Well, no, I know most of the time that the person that always hits back second is usually the person that gets caught, right? So they're not seeing that first person that gives that initial jab, but it's the person that follows up. So with that being said, if someone was looking inside or on the outside into your journey, what's something that they might miss? Like, for example, getting to the point that you are here today. Like for me, for example, being here in this studio here right now, doing this interview, people might either think that I've been doing it for a long time or that I've been doing it for how many number of years. But actually, before this, I was an athlete, right? So before this, I was an athlete. I had a major injury that kind of changed my whole trajectory and kind of led me into a new direction because I might not have been doing this. So for you, what, from somebody looking outside in, what's something that they might miss on your journey?
Well, I also have an athletic background. I know it's kind of ironic. We're talking about being more than an athlete and more than an entertainer. I did find myself playing sports as quite frankly, as a way to release a lot of energy and stresses that built up over the course of my childhood, just being exposed to racism and things like that. I've been a lawyer for 20 years now. I know that it was a goal that I had growing up. I wanted to be a professional. I always knew that I wanted to be this. I knew that athletic careers are short, and that's even if you get the opportunity to play. Yeah. So I really wanted to set myself up for long-term success. I knew that my brain would outlast my body. As I'm 46 years old now, having had knee surgery last year, Achilles was the year before that. I always knew that it could be gone in a blink of an eye. So to your point, how an injury could change your trajectory, I always accounted for that. And in the beginning, I knew that it was not going to be a lifelong opportunity.
See, so was that something that was instilled in you? Because for me, when I was a kid, I was like, I'm making it to the NBA. I don't care what nobody got to say. I'm gonna, and I put my whole into it. And I wasn't thinking about, honestly, frankly, I wasn't thinking that I wasn't gonna make it, or I wasn't thinking about after basketball. I was like, well, once I become a millionaire and I make all this money, I'm gonna be good no matter what. So what kind of, I guess, how did you kind of have that education and that mindset at such an early age?
Okay. Once again, that's my parents. So my father, Philip Park, he's a lawyer in town here. My mom, Dr. Claudia Parker, she got her PhD in education. She's an accountant. So there was really no opportunity for me not to progress academically. That was always number one objective, was to make sure that you've got your academics. That was number one. If I didn't do good on tests, I wouldn't be playing sports. I knew that was a consequence for not doing good academically. So, my parents always told me, they can't take away your mind, whoever the they is, but they can't take away your mind. So you strengthen your mind, you feed it with information, you get all the academics that you can. As I mentioned, bodies fade, muscles fade, abilities fade on the physical side, but the mental aspect is much more long-lasting.
No, shout out to Mama and Papa Parker for sure, because they instilled that in him. They instilled that in you, right? And not only in you, but in your other siblings as well. And so that, I think, is something that is very unique and very not unique, but it is very telling on the type of person that you turned out to be, right? Because of the foundation, the foundation is super, super important. Because of that foundation that they built and instilled in you, you were able to go to school and navigate a scenario where you might have been a minority, where you might have been dealing with different difficulties and different challenges from students, from just the school system in general, but also having that mindset to be able to handle that and to have the confidence in yourself to be able to handle that. So I really, really like that. So talking about your journey, kind of take me into your journey from, from I guess as a kid, kind of going up until kind of where you are right now?
Okay, so again, elementary school in North Edmonton, junior high North Edmonton. I went to Emile Lizard High School on the north side. From there, I went to the University of Alberta. I did have an opportunity to go to play NCAA basketball in Gonzaga. That was right before they were on a trajectory upwards.
So wait. So I didn't know that. So you had an opportunity to go to Gonzaga. Why didn't you?
So there were a few factors. I'd say probably the biggest one was that the coach who had been recruiting me wasn't going to be staying on with the organization, with the program. So the new coach came in, didn't have the history that we had generated and that rapport that we had generated. Another reason, perhaps even primary to that, was that I wanted to pursue my education. I always did believe that if I went stateside, I might lose the focus on the education side to get caught up with the tunnel vision to get to the NBA or bust, right? I knew that I was 6'1", which basketball terms is not very tall at all.
Be a point guard.
So I would have an uphill battle in that regard as well. But I would say the academics kept me here. My family, my friends kept me here. I had enjoyed a lot of successes up to the point in the city of Edmonton, and it's my hometown. So
okay. And so in that, I mean, honestly, that would have been, I feel like that would have, I understand where you're coming from with that decision, because especially with coaching, that's a huge thing. If the coach, decides to change, that coach doesn't have history or rapport with you, that's a really important thing. But I think it's very admirable about the piece about focusing on your education and knowing that that's that reminder, that foundation that you're going back to, the foundation that your parents brought you up, that your mind is going to outlast the body, right? So along this journey, like, going from elementary school to middle school to high school to university, was there any moments or points where you've had faced challenges or moments of doubt in yourself, even though you had this mindset and this confidence?
Well, I will say that I never doubted myself. That's one thing I can say about myself, that I have utmost confidence in my abilities to achieve the goals that I set for myself. I went to university. I enrolled in the business school. Well, first I was in the Faculty of Science for 1 year. Then I got my business degree. And after getting the business degree, I had an opportunity to go play professional basketball over in Europe, in France. But I made the decision to stick with law school. I got admitted to the University of Alberta Law School. So I wound up spending the full 8 years of my life at that school, achieving the goal of getting the law degree and essentially starting a brand new career, a new trajectory, starting from the bottom up once again.
Okay, so you were living this life of more than an athlete, more than an entertainer from a long time ago, because I mean, you already saw yourself as that, even though you were already a successful athlete. Because if I'm not mistaken, you played at U of A as well, correct?
That's right. I played for 5 years with the University of Alberta Golden Bears. In my final season there, I was a co-captain of the team. I was the team MVP. We won a national championship here. In 2002, and I was also the University of Alberta Male Athlete of the Year. So that was all in 2002. So I did achieve some successes there. Shortly after that, played in an international tournament, Jones Cup in Taiwan, to get exposure. Played against Russia, Philippines, Japan, a number of Asian countries. And I was also a part of a shortlist for the Canada national team as well that year. So it was there were some opportunities that I frankly left on the table to pursue what I considered to be a much more stable, long-term, and less flashy, less attractive, perhaps to most career.
Oh wow! No, I think that is very, very, very unique, because I think some people in that situation, they might have gone to sports, but I think it's very admirable of what you did, right, and what you chose.
Yeah, no, I figured that if I did go and start a professional basketball career, that I would not then return to law. I would have lost that, the work ethic, the study ethic, and that is not something I was prepared to part ways with. So now I will say though, I did have the opportunity to play on a professional team here in Edmonton. I gladly had the opportunity to play with my younger brother Andrew Parker on the Edmonton Chill basketball team. After the Edmonton Chill, there was the Edmonton Energy.
Yes.
And now it's the Edmonton Stingers.
Yes.
So
what was that opportunity like, actually? What was that like?
That was a fantastic opportunity for me. That was in 2008. So I had been a practicing lawyer for a couple of years at that time. It's an interesting sacrifice that I'll say that I made, because as a lawyer at a large national firm, as I was at the time, the desire is to fill up the timesheet, make money for the firm. So I was off playing basketball in Seattle and Chicago, not making money for the firm, which did create some difficulties on the legal side. But again, that's an opportunity that I took. And not an opportunity that everyone has, and one that I certainly wanted to cross off my own personal bucket list. So.
Okay, I actually didn't know that you played while you were a lawyer, so that's actually a really cool tidbit. Okay, that's very cool. That's very cool. I didn't know that. I did not know that. Okay, and so I mean, like in the games, are you hitting some of these guys with a little bit of law while you're scoring on them, or what?
You know what? I did get asked, I should say, a number of legal questions by my teammates, and we had a lot of laughs. In fact, I guess my teammates jokingly referred to me as Mr. Parker on the team. I was one of the older guys on the team, but that was my name, Mr. Parker.
No, I like that. Now, just going into that too, was there a moment when your mindset towards what success could look like kind of changed for you? I know, like maybe or this might have happened for you at a very early age, because you had your father who was a lawyer, and if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me, your father was the fourth lawyer that passed the bar here in Alberta.
He was the fourth black lawyer, member of the Alberta bar. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, that's a very, very cool and prestigious thing to do. That's a very good example. So I guess, and this is kind of why I'm doing this series, right? Is because I want to showcase that there's so much more than athletics and entertainment, and there's nothing wrong with being an athlete or an entertainer, because we are also those things as well too. But a lot of times we get placed in a box, myself included. We get placed in a box. When people see us, automatically they see that I'm fit, or that I look maybe big or muscular, and they automatically assume that I am an athlete, but they don't assume that maybe I can be a doctor or I can be a lawyer. They don't assume that. But I think it's really cool because you were able to see that example of your father and your mother doing something outside of athletics and entertainment.
Absolutely. And I really don't want to understate the importance that my parents played in shaping me and instructing me, right? And I fully realize that not everyone has that opportunity for a variety of reasons, right? So I know that I'm truly blessed to have grown up in a household with loving parents who were able to set the example beyond athletics and entertainment in the field of academics, law, accounting. There's a lot. There's a lot out there that could be pursued, and I know those examples were certainly ones that I wanted to follow.
No, I love that because, and like I said, that's what I want to do with this show. I want to show the youth, especially the young generation, that there's so many different opportunities and different professions that they can succeed in, even if it's a profession where they might not be a majority and they might be a minority in. It doesn't mean that they're not limited in what they can do and what they can achieve. Now, were there ever times where you were along your journey, where you were maybe doubted because of your abilities were doubted because of your identity or how you're perceived? For example, for myself, I know back home in the Caribbean, when I was younger, when I was in school, I was always kind of a big guy. Right? I was always a big guy, and I was very athletic, and I excelled at sports. And when it came to school, people always thought I used to mumble a little bit with my words. So people always thought I was dumb, or they assumed that I was stupid. And I got that a lot in school. I got teased a lot, being, oh, you're not so smart. You're just this big, tall man, not that smart. But I was smart, and I did put the work ethic and the effort into it, and I was able to prove a lot of people wrong by coming first in my class, right? So was there ever a scenario where you were doubted because of your abilities, because of how you might look, and did you prove them wrong?
So I can think of a number of examples, but absolutely, yes. I think that I was seen, particularly in my younger years, as nothing more than a troublemaker, right? I recall having a desk in the principal's office because I was sent down there so much because of fighting. If it weren't not for my good grades, I would have been dismissed as just a problem child troublemaker. But because I had a high academic standing, that is one thing that certainly saved me. Fast forward to high school. I'm in my physics class. I start to get very high grades. Physics teacher then invited me to sit at the front of the class under his desk as we wrote tests. Really? Just which I'm left to believe was to ensure that I wasn't cheating on those tests. I wound up getting the highest physics mark in the school that year, grade 12 at Emile Lazert. And the look on the teacher's face when he announced the highest class grade was priceless, right? It was shock, and not only from him, from the rest of the classmates as well, who didn't think that I would be able to pull something like that off. Fast forward to university, I'm writing tests, getting good grades again. I get pulled aside after a test by a university professor and asked to empty my pockets. Really? Again, under the assumption that I must have been cheating to obtain some of these scores that I was getting. So yes, to answer your question, I have certainly been in a position where others have thought that I was incapable or that I was doing something untowards to achieve these goals, to achieve these results. So it's not something that I am not used to throughout my life. It's happened before. I doubt that it'll stop happening as I continue to grow older.
No, and that's some of those experiences are kind of crazy actually to experience that. And I guess kind of going right off of that, we're gonna kind of dive into our game, because we're talking about stereotypes. And, seeing that you are a champ, you know what I'm saying, basketball player, I got a lot of faith in you right now. I got a lot of faith in you. So we're going to play a little game. And in this game, what we're going to do actually is I have a couple pieces of paper here with a couple phrases or stereotypes that you would have encountered. We would have talked and you would have encountered one of these stereotypes, right? So you might have mentioned it prior in the conversation or not, but we are gonna get you to pick one of these stereotypes, and you're gonna look at it, you're gonna open it, you're gonna read it, or you're just gonna keep it to yourself, first, and then you're going to crumple it up and you're gonna shoot it into the basket here. And I mean, now a lot is counting on you right now, because if you miss it, the stereotype is not broken. So no.
Maybe I will be breaking one by missing.
so no, but we're gonna play, and then we're gonna take that piece out and just read it, and then kind of expand a little bit on that scenario or experience. So
let's try this one here. So keep it to myself.
Yeah, so you can keep it to yourself. If it's something that you might have mentioned, then we might pick another one, but that's no.
Nope.
Go. Oh, it is okay. No.
No,
okay.
It's a new topic. Yeah.
Perfect. So, moment of truth right now. I know it's a little bit awkward, so Hey, he's a shooter. So he got the shot in here. So, man, his brother AGP. I know you're coming later. The bar has been set. Just saying. Okay, I guess you know what it is. So I guess you can tell me. So, okay. So the piece of paper here says you look like a criminal. So can you expand on an experience or on this stereotype and how you were able to, I guess, how you dealt with it or navigated it?
Well, I've got a couple of instances that actually involve the various police services of this area. But I can recall one instance when there was a bit of a melee going on. There were some black people involved in the melee. I was not involved. Yet when the police arrived, there were people shouting that I was with them. And that is what got me pepper sprayed and hogtied and brought down to the jail. I had to work some community service as a result of that in order to avoid a criminal record, which would have prevented me from practicing law. So that's one instance. Another instance, I have a hobby where I was flying remote control airplanes just north of the city. I was with a friend of mine, a black man. And then the RCMP descended on us full force, quite aggressively. Hands on their sidearms, directing us to put our hands up. Apparently, they had received a call from someone driving on the highway where I was flying my plane, suggesting that we were disposing of a body on the roadside. Okay, so the police are coming in with this type of heat, with the suggestion that we're murderers, and disposing of a body. And so they searched my vehicle. Obviously, he found nothing other than a remote control and an airplane. And I asked the police officer, why four cars? Why all this pressure? And they told me that someone had phoned it in, said that there were two black guys on the side of the road disposing of a body. Jeez. You were the two black guys.
Jeez.
So to look like a criminal, I don't know what a criminal looks like, but according to some people, according to people in the police service and other people in the community, I look like a criminal. So have a good look at a would-be criminal. Obviously, I've never had a criminal record. I'm not involved in criminal activity. I'm doing all these other things with my life, but yet there's this unfortunate perception that I've had to encounter over many times in my life.
See, so like, how do you navigate that? Because it's not like we cannot change the color of our skin or anything like that. No. I can't do that. So how do you navigate that? Because it's like you're dealing with a whole different set of assumptions or presumptions that are brought up against you. Like, for example, I know a lot of times when, say, I go down the road, maybe because I might be dressed in sweats or relaxed, people always think I'm a drug dealer. They're like, "Oh, well, can we get some drugs from you?" I'm like, "Well, why me? Why? What makes me look like a drug dealer? Is it because I'm black? Is it because I'm dressed this way? What is the reason that you assume that I'm a drug dealer?" So, and sometimes it's very frustrating, So how do you navigate that? Because I know for me, sometimes I think, okay, I got to dress a certain way so that they perceive me in a different way. But then sometimes I just want to be comfortable. Right? So it's sometimes very frustrating for me. So for you, how do you kind of navigate that?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Particularly with dealing with the police, obviously you can't be overreactive.
Exactly.
Things have died down in recent years, but police brutality is a real issue. Yeah. And I know that I've experienced it personally. Okay. You've got to keep a level head. You've got to, again, my parents told me to take the high road. I know what lashing out when I was young got me, a seat in the principal's office. A seat in the jail as an adult is not something that I want to be near. That is... That's something I'll avoid at all costs, essentially. I mean, I do not want to be a statistic to further any stereotypes, to reinforce stereotypes, to reinforce negative.
See, but Stephen, listen, but okay. So I understand that, taking the high road. But if I didn't do anything wrong, if first of all, you were just flying planes, right? They come right on you, right? I didn't do I wasn't doing that. Then you also got scooped up with a bunch of people. They didn't ask you any questions. You have to do community. At what point can I stand up for myself, and at what point am I supposed to take the high road? Because I can't just be taking the high road all the time.
You know what? It's difficult to navigate it, and it's not to say that the high road is something that must be taken every time, right? like I know in my situation, like I said, I was facing criminal charges, you know, and I had to decide whether, you know, fighting it all the way to the end was going to be the best solution for me. There was another opportunity that presented itself, and you know, in order to preserve my future, I pursued that opportunity. So, you know, when I was getting manhandled and shackled up, did I want to fight and use my power? Absolutely, I did. You know, I knew that there would be consequences, though, if I chose that action. Much worse than pepper spray, right? I didn't want to, you know, to give the police any additional reason to escalate things further. So, you know, that was a reality that I faced in that instance. I know that other people have lashed out, and other people then get additional charges, which are harder to get away from. Right?
No, it's funny that you said that, because as you were saying that, I was just thinking in my own self, not as extreme a scenario, but from in my own personal experience, you know, I think in the base of what you're saying, one thing that I'm taking as a theme that's important is having the ability to remain calm and I guess emotional, what's the word I'm looking for? Emotional, not stability, emotional intelligence, man. So emotional intelligence, knowing when is the right moment to maybe say something or, you know, lash out, as opposed to a moment where, hey, the consequence of me maybe reacting in a way might not be beneficial to me, you know? And for example, like I was saying, so for example, for me personally, my previous job, I was the only black person at that job, at least on that branch that I was in. And I was having some issues with my boss. I was having some issues where attendance was coming into play, and I was brought into the office. And when I was brought into the office, my boss, the way he approached me was very disrespectful. It was very, you know, talking down to me, and I got upset. And in that moment, when normally I'd always be calm, I lost my cool. And in that moment when I lost my cool, I raised my voice, I shouted, I pointed. And when I did that, right after I did that, they set up the way that they set up the parameters for me to continue to go back to work was that I would fail. Like it was not conducive to my success. So it was very easy to get in trouble right after that. You said, oh, hey man, if you now, because of how you reacted in this scenario, first a stereotype of angry black man. You're in this position because of the attitude that you have, that you're displaying. This is the same attitude that I'm talking. But they provoked me into that.
That's what they expected.
That's what they expected from me. And I allowed them to do that. So it actually backfired on me. And because I reacted in the way that I reacted, I was then later on, not that immediate time and not that immediate moment, but maybe like a week later, I was then terminated, right? And so in that moment, you know what? I'm happy because I was led to a better job, something that is a better working environment for myself. But in that moment, it's understanding, having the emotional intelligence to understand the situation. Maybe knowing, hey, yes, I'm upset, but this is not the moment for me to maybe act up, or not act up, but for me to say my piece, right? Maybe I should have just been a little bit calm in the situation, evaluated it, and then maybe dealt with it in a different way. Right, so having that emotional intelligence, I think, is very important.
I agree with that 100%. And you know, sometimes, frankly, the strongest thing that you can do is to endure the injustice for you know a period of time, within reason, of course. I know everyone's got their breaking point, and you know, to the extent that you can extend it further, I think it's beneficial. But at the same time, we do have to drive some meaningful change to avoid people like yourself, people and myself being put in these situations where you could just make a snap decision and everything could come falling down on you, right?
Yeah. Because life comes down to decisions that you make every single day, just little small ones, right? So now kind of going more into your profession. So in your profession as a lawyer, do you feel that there's a lot of black representation, or that black people are represented fairly in your industry?
Well, I'll tell you this. It's certainly been increasing, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
As I mentioned, my father is the fourth black lawyer to be called to the Alberta bar. I'm not too sure where I fit in there. I was called in 2005, but
Okay.
I know that certainly since then, there's been immigration of a number of foreign-trained lawyers. I'm certainly aware of a strong Nigerian community of lawyers coming, to Edmonton and being more visible. So it is happening. It is taking shape. It's been taking shape slowly, as you might imagine, but it's because of a number of initiatives, outreach initiatives, to introduce people to the concept, even of pursuing a legal career, as opposed to seeing someone on your TV screen, typical representation, someone with a lot of jewelry, vehicles and things like that. This is who you want to become. So that's what I would have to say about that.
Okay. And so give me a little bit of background into like what a day-to-day would look like for you, what a day in your profession would look like for the audience, for people that might be interested in pursuing law.
So it's a lot different now than when I started. As you would expect, a career can take you on a number of different trajectories. So I started out articling with a large national firm, then moved with an even larger international firm. Back then it was getting as much work done as you can. As a young lawyer, you're trying to solve as many problems. You're trying to get as much time, quite frankly, down on your sheet, so that people pay the firm and pay your salary.
Okay.
And then the partnership obviously gets to share in the profits.
Okay.
So
sorry, just to cut you off there.
Sure.
So can you explain that a little bit better to me? So for example, you're going out there, you're dealing with clients or dealing with, I guess jobs. And then if you solve those jobs, that credits to you, that's like on your file?
So most of the firms have a time-based billing system, right? So
Okay.
however many hours it takes you to prepare for a court proceeding or whatnot, that's what you would pay an hourly rate.
Okay.
There's some other billing structures, like a contingency fee arrangement, where, for example, in personal injury cases, you see they might take a percentage of the award, depending on how advanced the litigation gets.
Okay.
So there's a couple of different ways to kind of measure how you get paid. But as a younger lawyer, as an associate at the time, my job was to fill up that timesheet.
Yeah.
It was to get into court. It was to draft. It was to spend time in the office generating income for the firm. And that's what a lot of lawyers see. For me, my own personal path had me step away from that after about a decade.
Okay.
When I got married and had some young children. Working 10 hours a day every day for weeks on end. Tends to pose some difficulties on the family front, you might say. Yep. So a decision was made whether to continue to be on in that rat race on the wheel. But what I did was I took a step back and joined another firm, which wasn't didn't have the same onerous hourly requirements. I stayed there for about a year, and then I found my current home with a government insurance agency where I've been for 10 years. So right now I'm currently leading the operations for Alberta and BC.
Okay.
I lead a team of lawyers and staff in Edmonton and another one in Calgary right now. So so I do see the inside of a courtroom less than I would have in years gone by. Much more management now, consulting, and things like that.
Okay, and as we were talking to prior to the interview, you also mentioned that in law there's a lot of versatility. You can go into different branches, and it's not too much of a hassle. You can transition, like you just transitioned from intellectual property into insurance, right? It's a very kind of easy transition once you meet an expert, maybe in insurance, and kind of pick their brain and kind of do a little bit more research and get some little education just to keep up.
That's right. So, you get a law degree from a common law jurisdiction. You have a baseline. You've got, a framework to start to build your legal career. So for me, working at a large firm, trying to fill the timesheet, I did get a lot of broad experience in a number of different areas. So civil litigation, which was my bread and butter. Intellectual property, so copyright litigation, trademark, prosecution, patent infringement, things like that, software licensing, all of those types of things. But in Edmonton, that IP work is not sufficient, or at least it wasn't for me to fill up the timesheet sufficiently. So I started to branch out to different areas. I was doing some personal injury work. I did, some tax work. But again, you do have to learn from, the experts in those fields to become competent enough to start to practice in those areas.
Okay. No, so I like that there's a lot of versatility within the law industry. And so, have you ever encountered any stereotypes within the law industry now that you had to face or navigate?
Absolutely. Again, it's quite similar to the stereotypes that I would face in general society, but in a law firm, again, at the time I was the only black person. I think that there might have been another or two in the years that followed, but I'm essentially the spokesperson for a race. A lot of the lawyers that I encountered really didn't have any meaningful interaction with black people, right? Again, their views were informed by the stereotypical depictions that we see on TV and the media. So I know that I had to spend extra time to generate relationships with these individuals on a personal basis to let them understand that, in fact, I'm an individual, I'm a person, I'm a human being, I have viewpoints that are valuable, and that I'm not some sort of office pariah to be avoided. So I did knock on a lot of doors. There were some lawyers who were more comfortable working with me, others who refrained, let's just say. So that's one instance, I guess, of what I encountered. I know that there were some other unfortunate incidents where I was I feel intentionally excluded from law firm events. I'm pretty sure there was a comprehensive email list circulating in the firm, but somehow my name was conspicuously missed from my perspective. So that was one instance. I remember one year we had a Christmas function at a so-called high-end restaurant downtown Edmonton, and the maitre d' made a point of explaining to me that it was a private function and refused me entrance initially. It wasn't until one of the older, senior partners at the firm asked me if I was coming in as I was standing in the foyer that he finally let me in. So that was a difficult instance for me. I know I couldn't eat that day. I didn't know what others in the organization, what views they might have about me. Again, the only black person in this fancy law firm function. So those are just some examples.
No, I can relate to that as well too. Like I said, at my previous job there too, I always wanted to get into a leadership role. I had supervisor experience from previous jobs, and I wanted to get into a leadership role. I wanted to become a lead hand, and I remember I asked my supervisor at the time. I asked him if I could, I've been here. I'm the most senior person now in this position. We've had a lot of turnover at this point now. So me being the most senior person now in this position, I feel like it's only necessary that I could be a lead hand. And he said that I would have to go to school, and I was like, I would have to go to school and take some courses to become a lead hand. And I asked him if these other, people that are lead hands had to do that. And he's like, well, they had experience. I was like, I have experience as well. So it was very, very frustrating. And just the way he's like, well, maybe, when you go to school and you come back, then you can get into that role. But it was very different for the other people that were involved. And even another thing that occurred as well was training. When it came to training, I came with, my first aid and my CTS and all these different things. But then when it was time to renew, they just let mine go, but they would renew everybody else. So it was I didn't understand. It was very frustrating. And every time I tried to, make a point about it, they would just kind of, just push it to the side, So I can definitely relate. And like you said, being the only black person there, you are the token because, once I actually requested that I had another friend that I wanted to get hired. He was also black. And they were like, well, he's not like you. And I'm like, well, we're different people. He doesn't have to be like me. They're like, oh yeah, he's not like you. He's not as, as charismatic or smiling as much. And I was like, yeah, he's a different personality. So if we're not the same people.
Yeah, imagine that. We're not all the same.
Exactly. We're all unique.
Yeah, Yeah. No. That is part of what I've had to exhibit in the legal realms that I've been, frequenting over the past 2 decades, is that I'm an individual. I know that I'm, for better or for worse, an ambassador for more than just myself, but everyone's an individual, right? Yep. Regardless of your skin color and your upbringing, we're all individual people. So
exactly, 100%. And so, Stephen, what is something that you wish that young black people, that might be young black youth that are trying to get into the law industry, what's something that you wish that they knew?
So in the past couple of years, I've been involved with the University of Alberta law faculty. There's an elite program, Pathway for Law, where there have been a number of black legal professionals who've made themselves available as panelists to speak with aspiring black law students. So that's certainly one initiative that I've been involved with that I think is absolutely fantastic, something that I know I would have benefited from myself, to see people who have got law degrees, who are out in the field, and just to get advice and a bit of a heads up as to what you're getting into. So that's one method. Again, it's aimed to demystify the legal profession.
Yes.
I know that a lot of people might just think that you need a lawyer when you're a criminal, and you need criminal defense, right? So I'm trying to explain that, while my father's a criminal defense lawyer, I am currently an insurance defense lawyer, and before that I was an intellectual property lawyer, right? So just to help them understand how diverse,
and how broad it is. And that's something that when I asked you initially, I didn't actually know that it was so easy to transition between different parts of law, and that law is so diverse in what you can do, right? Absolutely. So I think it's really cool that you were able to share that with young people, because they might not know that. They might think, oh, well, I can only become a criminal lawyer. I can only become an intellectual property lawyer, right? When there's so many different avenues of law that they can actually participate in.
Yeah, no, a law degree is certainly a valuable one that could be leveraged in a lot of different scenarios, whether it's the actual legal world, whether it's the business world, whether it's the political world. It can be leveraged in a number of different ways.
100%. And so just kind of one last thing into the stereotype is, was there a time where you were able to turn a stereotype that would have been used against you or perceived or conceived about you into a positive at your workplace? So for example, for myself, say I know that I can't make maybe the same mistakes that maybe my other counterparts or coworkers can make. So I have to maybe work twice as hard to excel or to get forward. But that also benefited me, even though it was unfortunate and it was kind of frustrating at times. It also benefited me because I'm working harder. I'm improving myself at a level that maybe my coworkers might not be, because I have to work twice as hard to get the same opportunity as them, right? Was there ever an opportunity, or was there ever a scenario where you were able to take the stereotype that was placed on you and turn it into an advantage for you?
Well, that's exactly what I did throughout my life. That is something that my parents kind of trained me to do, is to say, you are going to encounter people like this. The best remedy for that is to prove them wrong, right? So throughout my life, I've found the most pleasure in dispelling these myths, these misconceptions about who I am. I know who I am. People who don't know me don't necessarily know much about me other than what they might have read or something like that. So I would say, as you have, I've turned that negative energy into positive motivation for myself, right? Not everyone can do that. Not everyone has done it successfully, but I've found a way to really motivate myself. When I receive this vile negativity, I respond with love, right? With achievement, with accomplishments, right? And just to say that, yes, I can do these things. No, I'm not who you thought I was. I'm a different person.
Yeah,
right?
100%. And I know there was a time also as well that we talked about this kind of previously. You said there was a time when you were on a call in insurance when I think you were dealing with the indigenous client.
That's right.
Could you expand on that scenario, that experience?
Sure. So I just, when we were having that conversation, I was explaining a situation where I was representing an indigenous fellow who, he had a number of negative experiences with the establishment, whether that is, the federal government, whether it's the police. Did not want to deal with government agencies. So I, as the lawyer for a government agency, was now appointed as his defense counsel. He had a lot of mistrust. He did not trust me. He, thought that I wasn't out for his best interests, which, is my job as his legal counsel. So, he did demonstrate perhaps some racist attitudes that he had. He was saying, I don't like the white man, and you're the white man. To which I had to stop him and said, well, actually, I'm not. I'm a black person. I can relate to some of the struggles that you might have encountered in your life. This was an elder from a First Nations community in Saskatchewan. And I'll tell you what, the moment that he discovered that my skin was dark and I have faced some of these stereotypes, he opened right up to me. He was calling me a brother from another mother. I'm happy to say that we were able to successfully defend the claim. And I have a feeling that other lawyers might not have had the same appetite to endure perhaps some of the negativity that was coming from him. This was right around the time of the residential school discoveries and things like that. So all that is to say that having a diverse legal team it can be just as important rather as having diversity in all other areas, right? 100%. So this one fellow, if he didn't cooperate, then we would have been required to pay significant amounts of money. But because of the rapport that we were able to generate just on some common shared experiences, we were able to get a favorable result for him and for my client as well.
I love that. I love when we can break a stereotype and turn it into a positive. I love that. So that's really, really big. So now kind of shifting into more as we're getting towards the end of our interview here, and shifting into the legacy and kind of a light part of it. So is there something that people don't know that would have shaped you in your culture or your background that shaped the person that you are today? I know that parents were a big part of that. Is there anything else from your culture or your background that would have helped to shape the person that you are today?
Well, I see the interaction that, certainly my mother had with her family. She's the eldest of 8 in
we
her
have
family.
Big families back then.
Right. So just in instilling family values in me. I grew up in a Christian household, right? So, good positive values. It's My parents certainly did. Just growing up in the city of Edmonton, in the 80s, much like many of the other Edmontonians, I like the Edmonton Oilers. I'm a fairly regular guy, notwithstanding that I've had, some unique experiences that I've had to deal with. So, that's probably what I would mention there.
Okay, nice. And so, if you could give your 15-year-old self some advice, I see you smiling. What advice would you give him, if you would give him any?
I would tell a 15-year-old Stephen Parker to stay the course. I would tell him that you can do it. You will do it if you continue to persevere, whatever it is, whether it's athletics, academics. It would just be about instilling confidence in a younger me. I now have a 14-year-old son, right, who's going to high school, and there's a lot of uncertainty at that age, right? Yeah. There's a lot of, am I good enough? Am I the names that people are calling me, right? There's bullying. So that's something I would tell a young me is just you're on the right path. Stay on it. Don't get distracted. Don't think that some of these negative stereotypes that you see is your destiny, because it's not, 100%. Right? And it hasn't been.
100%. I love that. And so, just going off of that, you have kids. You have a son and a daughter, right? So, what's something that you want to leave for your kids? What kind of legacy do you want to leave for your kids?
Well, again, I just want them to know that they can achieve any goal that they set their sights on. There will be people, unfortunately, in this world that will try to bring negativity into their world, into their minds. I would just encourage them to be the owner of their own headspace, right? And it's very difficult. I know external influences can get in your head, and they can stay in there if you let it, right? And it's not easy, right? And not everyone can do it, but you must develop some skills and tools to navigate through the negativity and to focus on the positivity and to move in that direction, right? It's easy to fall into a trap of returning negativity with more negativity, and it's a spiral that continues in perpetuity. 100%. So interject, with some positivity, change the course, change the direction. That's within you. You're empowered to do that. You do not have to accept the status quo. You can change for the better.
No, and I love what you said, because it actually kind of gave me a flashback. I think one thing that I think that mindset is crucial. I think it's a fundamental thing. I think in order for you to achieve anything that you want to achieve in life, you have to have the right mindset. And sometimes I didn't always think that way. But I had an experience when I suffered one of my injuries. When I suffered an injury playing football, where I split my kidney. I split my kidney in half, and the tube from my kidney to my bladder was shifted, and I was leaking urine in my body, and I was in a really, really, really dark place because I worked so hard to get there, and I was so negative. It's so easy for you to think. I actually. Scientifically, it's easier for you to think negatively than it is for you to think positively. And so I was in that hospital, and I was just there feeling bad for myself. And in that moment I was feeling bad for myself, I wasn't able to walk, so I had to relearn how to walk. And as I was walking throughout the corridor, there was a guy in the room next to me, and he was in a motorized wheelchair. And he's like, "Oh man, you're walking already," and I was like, "Oh man, I'm not walking." Just I was complaining, I was being negative, and he was like, "Man, you only been in here for like 2 weeks, man. There's people been in here for months, and and you're already walking." And we started talking, and this guy told me, so this guy had he had cancer, and the cancer had spread up to his left leg, and they had to amputate it. And then the cancer then spread to his right testicle, and they had to amputate his testicle. You know what he said to me? He said, "Hey, they had to even your boy out." He was cracking jokes. Right? So you have to even your boy out. And that wasn't even it, So the cancer had then spread to his bladder. and then he had a huge hole in the side of his stomach, and they had a colonoscopy bag there, and he said very painful process. Every time he had to urinate or do anything else, very, very painful process. But he'd been there for 6 months, no family, no friends to come to see him. But you wouldn't have been able to tell because he was so positive. He was so upbeat. It made me feel like, man, I'm not even going through anything compared to this guy, And what that kind of taught me was that no matter how bad you think you have things, there's always somebody else in the world that is going through something worse than you.
That's right.
And everything comes down to how you choose to look at your perception, how you choose to perceive it. I could take this thing as a negative, or I could take it as a positive. I can choose to see maybe the silver lining in things, right? And that's why I think mindset is so important, and to think positively, and to choose to focus on the positive instead of the negative, because focusing on the negative is not going to benefit you, right? So I really, really like what you said. I really, really like what you said, actually. And so last two questions I got for you here. So you have now, we've talked a lot here, and you have done a lot. You've gone from going through school, from encountering many different adversities, from maybe name calling, maybe getting suspected of cheating, getting suspected of all these different things, and still being able to achieve your goals, become a lawyer, being able to play professionally, which is really cool as a lawyer too, something that's very, very cool. But in all of it, I know life is full of ups and downs and adversity. So what I want to ask you is, what is maybe the biggest obstacle that you've had to encounter, and what is the lesson that you learned from it?
Well, yeah, adversity makes you stronger, right? So, I can think of a number of examples on the athletic side. You lose a game, you lose a championship, for example. You come back more hungry, right? Or at least you can if you choose to.
If you choose to,
right? A lot of people can feel defeated, and they would be done in those type of situations. So, there are certainly some aspects from the sporting world and sports psychology that you can transfer to the business world and to other areas. But again, I've had a number of injuries. Knee surgery last year, even. Achilles, and throughout my playing career that, like yourself, have caused you to reevaluate things and think of a bigger picture, because you get so focused into, this is what I want to do, this is my goal. And if there's an obstacle right in front of you, maybe it's insurmountable. What are you going to do then, right? You have to be able to pivot. Yep. You have to be able to say, well, here's another opportunity that's opened up as a result of this one being closed. So I think just generally that's how I have approached it myself, is to, the cup is half full, right? There is a solution. It's not an impasse. You're just going to have to figure it out, right? Spend the time, spend the effort to actually achieve the goal. Stay focused on that.
I love that, because I was actually mentioning this to you a little bit earlier before our interview here, is that I was talking to my brother as well, my little brother, and he was telling me all these plans that he has. He wants to be successful. And I said, I love those plans that you have for yourself. I told him just a little bit of helpful advice, just from my own personal experience. Usually whenever you make a plan, things never go according to plan, usually. But I said, don't let that stop you. No matter what, don't maybe focus so much on your plan, but focus on the destination, because sometimes you might have to take a little bit of a detour in life, or you might have to walk around, to get to the same place. But it's all about the destination and not giving up. So I love that you said that. Now, to kind of end things and wrap things up, our kind of last final theme question. So I'll give you a little bit of context. So the question is, what does being more than an athlete, more than an entertainer mean to you? To me, it means that I am not limited in what I can do. I can do whatever. I was an athlete, and now I guess I'm a little bit in entertainment, I guess, in media here. But this doesn't define me and what I can do. I can do whatever I put my mind to. And I think what's really cool is that I'm not boxed in, and I really want the listeners to know this, whether they're old, young, whatever you may be, that there's no limitations on what you can do. You can do whatever you put your mind to, and you don't have to be boxed in by a profession or by identity or by whatever. So I guess, what does being more than an athlete, more than an entertainer mean to you?
So, I mean, I'll just reiterate, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being an athlete or an entertainer, right?
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah.
But there's so much more that I think people don't realize that Black people do in society, right? So, whether it's becoming a lawyer, whether it's becoming an accountant or a doctor or an engineer or whatever, there's just a variety of paths that you could take that you don't necessarily see, right? So I think being visible or having visibility in those fields is an inspiration in itself, right? I think about regardless of what political affiliation you might have, but President Barack Obama, right? And now you've got these kids who have dreamed, maybe I'll be president one day. Maybe they thought they couldn't because of the color of their skin or because of their gender or whatever you might have. So more than an athlete, more than an entertainer is just to say it's more than what's generally represented in the media, right?
I love that, yeah.
It's the people that you don't see. It's the people that you don't even know you can aspire to be, right? So, I just want to spend time to tell everyone that there's opportunities out there, right? Don't feel that you must fit a prototype that's been set. You can break free. You can do whatever it is that you want to do, whatever it is that needs to be done, right? So, it's a message of empowerment. It's a message of opportunity. Again, a message of optimism for the next generation to say, I can be whatever. I can be a president. I can be, a lawyer. I could be whatever it is. It doesn't have to be something that I've only seen. It could be something that hasn't even been imagined yet, right?
Yeah, 100%. So 100%. And I love that. And to kind of wrap things up, my athletes and my entertainers, I'm not against you at all, because I am one of those. I am both of those. So I'm not against you guys at all. But I just want people to know that that's not all that we are, that we can do, even our athletes and our entertainers that are out there, we are not just athletes and entertainers. That doesn't define us. We are so much more. We could be fathers, we can be doctors, lawyers, chiropractors, so many different things, right? There's so many things that is great, not greater, well, that's greater than us just being boxed in to say that we are only this one thing, right? And so I want to thank you again, Stephen Parker, for giving us your time and coming on here. I think it's a really, really great interview. We had a really great interview, and I think it's a really great story for the youth that are out there to be able to see another avenue of something else that is possible, something else that they can achieve. And you can now be like the same example that your father set for you to some of these other youth out here. They can see, hey, okay, Stephen Parker is a lawyer. Maybe I want to be a lawyer too. And now they can see they have that example. And that's what this series is all about. In More Than an Athlete, More Than an Entertainer, debunking the stereotype. We just want to show you all the possibilities of things that are possible for you to achieve. You're not limited. You are not boxed in. You can achieve whatever you put your mind to. So thank you so much. And that is going to be an end of another great episode, y'all. Yo.